Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to touch on a subject in the form of a podcast slash commentary video. And I wanted to touch on the subject of Black pain and trauma movies and our reaction to them as Black people. So as you can see by the title, I want to talk about how as Black people we claim to not like or hate Black pain and struggle movies or movies depicting Black pain and struggle, but yet we still watch. So I'm going to get into that into this video. So I've been noticing and seeing online lately Black people talking about how they are tired of seeing movies that depict Black pain and struggle. And to this, I say I agree. However, I have to call out some of the quote unquote fake wokeness and hypocrisy that I've noticed. Though I do feel that the movies depicting Black pain and struggle, or movies depicting, the civil rights movement or the injustices we face as Black people, whether historically or present day, or whether these are based on real stories of real people or are fictional stories, I do believe they have good intentions and they are good for educational purposes, especially when they are accurately told. However, I also feel like it's a bad thing because it further puts out in our minds and in the minds of others that our only stories to tell, or our best stories or strongest stories, are those that are of pain and trauma and struggle and, in a way dysfunction, because it's, our reality to a certain degree. Some people have coined the term trauma porn. Now, I first heard this term from Kim over at For Harriet, and I do agree. And the best way I can describe and explain trauma porn is meaning people, especially white audiences, overindulge in media and film that often depict Black stories of pain and struggle. There may be triumph in the end, but the theme or the plot of the film or show, or that may be centered on Black pain, or the characters in the movie or the show may be of a Black character that is experiencing some kind of negative, painful experience in society. These are the films that have won or at least have been nominated at award shows like the Oscars, maybe even the Golden Globes or other, so-called white and or prestigious awards, and which has been met with rightful and justifying criticism for their lack of or selective diversity, mainly the Oscars. And granted, I will say that in the Emmys kind of get it right. And over the years, I've seen the Emmys get it right, for me at least. And this makes it seem like Black movies with Black people facing or dealing with racism or struggle or abuse is the only qualifying point or qualifying factor or trope that makes it worthy of its recognition, high rank or rating, or award win / nomination at award shows. Which is why I am glad to see award shows including more Black films and shows, or film and shows with Black characters that have more dimension and ambiguity, which is why I loved and appreciated Viola Davis's Emmy win for How to Get Away with Murder. Because yes, she played a successful Black female attorney, but she also dealt with her own problems like, everybody else. And it was a case of moral ambiguity. That's what I looked at it. And I felt like that show ended perfectly. They did not end with her dying. They did end with her dying, but not in like the worst way possible. She just lived her life and, ended like nature intended. And I love that. And I feel like the show ended in a way perfectly. Now, though I agree with Black people's criticism on this trope, I, however, have to call out our hypocrisy on this. We claim to be tired of this, but we still watch. We still watch, in some cases, movies that have kind of portrayed Black dysfunction, Black pain, Black trauma, and, we still watch these movies. So we may not like to see the slave movies, but from what I see, Black people loved Queen and Slim, and we love Baby Boy. We hail that movie as a cult classic. And it's not, and sometimes it's not even just about Black pain and trauma in terms of racism and police brutality. It's also the movies that pertain to dysfunction within the Black community. So other movies that depict Black trauma and dysfunction, especially between Black men and Black women in relationships. So Queen and Slim showcased a lot of trauma, like police brutality, death at the hands of the police, no happy ending for the main characters, giving off this impression that Black people cannot have a happy ending because we don't deserve it, or we don't deserve a happy ending because it's not quote unquote relatable. And that's another thing I will hear from certain movies that are depicted of Black pain, especially if we feel like if it's executed well in a way, whether it's based on a real event or a real story. And we will say, well, it's relatable. This is the stuff we go through. This is, and I feel like in some cases, we have definitely put it out there that, because we want to tell our stories. And I remember what Jarrell Jerome said at the Emmys for his Emmy win. And he said, unfortunately, our strongest stories are those that, showcase or tell our pain. But he said something about like how our pain needs to be told. And like I said, for educational purposes, especially since schools don't often do that, since schools don't often tell our stories, whether it be of struggle, pain, triumph, victory, excellence, our stories do need to get told and do need to be told. But where I disagreed with him is when he said, if it's another 20 years of us showing our pain, I'm like, no, although our pain needs to be told, I want it to be balanced out with some more Black joy, Black triumph, Black existence, Black people being the leads and the protagonists and doing other, other types of movies where we're not side characters or we're not set up to be main characters only for us not to be seen as the main characters for so long, like those white savior movies. I like to see more movies like Hidden Figures minus the white savior scene in the end, which if you take that out of the movie, I don't think the movie was bad. I want to see us doing more stuff. I want to see us doing like things like sci-fi. I want us being, I want dark-skinned Black women, unambiguous dark-skinned Black women to be love interests and leads and protagonists. And if there is a live-action Princess of the Frog, she has to be an unambiguous, beautiful, dark-skinned Black woman who can act, sing, and do all of that, and make her human for more of the movie if you can. I'm just saying, that's just my opinion. But I also do think that I see the hypocrisy. Sometimes even when we claim we want this, a lot of times too, I will hear that it's not good. And I will get into that a little bit later. Now, the hypocrisy I find in this is that when the photograph came out, it didn't get met with the same praise or at least the same overwhelming amount of recognition from Black people as Queen and Slim did, or at least from what I saw over the internet. So granted, it may not be everyone's cup of tea, and this is all subjective. A lot of things, whether it be movies, TV, music, it's subjective, whether it be the people at the award shows or the people on the voting committee or the general public. It's definitely subjective, okay? But a simple Black movie, that released during Black History Month and on Valentine's Day doesn't get the overwhelming amount of Black reception. And granted, there were Black people and some Black people who did see it and who did review it on YouTube. I saw that, but I didn't see this overwhelming amount of videos for it that I did Queen and Slim. And I remember watching Troy's TV and he said, no, the movie was trash, photograph was trash. And I'm like, bro, okay, of course it's your subjective opinion, but I really feel like it's because you like the dysfunctional stuff. I really feel like that's what it is. And even Chrissy did a review on it where it's like, it seems like if it's not dysfunctional enough for us, we don't like it. Now, here's the thing, but a chill, mellow, not too dysfunctional movie does not trend in the Black community compared to a movie like Queen and Slim. By the way, I believe that was a dropped ball on Lena Waithe's part. She was really selling this movie kind of like, oh, this is going to be the blackest movie of the year. And with the themes of the movie, it seems like you were trying to say it being the blackest movie and the fact that it showcased some pain and struggle and trauma, but we can find it relatable because it's relatable, quote unquote relatable. It's some reason makes it the blackest movie of the year. And granted, why does why do it being the blackest movie or it being the blackest thing or for it to be black always mean that it has to in some way, shape, or form tie into the dysfunctional aspects of our, culture? I'm not saying all of us think this way, but I'm just saying sometimes it feels like sometimes I've encountered some people in our community who think that being black always has to be equated with some not only low standard of living, but a very traumatic experience. And granted, that's not, that's kind of the average black person's experience, but it doesn't have to be that way 24/7. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom 24/7. But then again, I saw that Queen and Slim got snubbed for a Golden Globe and black folks were mad. But I thought we were tired of black pain and trauma movies getting nominated for or winning these type of awards. And I saw in the comments section of when it was posted, oh, Queen and Slim got snubbed for a Golden Globe, and then it's like, this is why we have to stop supporting these white awards and we have to support our own awards. But to be honest, I was actually glad it got snubbed. I thought we were tired of these black pain and trauma movies winning these awards. Now, granted, When They See Us did get nominated for all those Emmys. And the reason I can kind of overlook it because this was a real event and a real story. And these men were finally getting their story told. So I can kind of look at this and say, yeah, this is just something we didn't see and that we need to see. Like I said, some of these movies are necessary for especially educational purposes, especially when they are accurately told. But in other cases, again, yeah, it doesn't need to be doom and gloom all the time, which there was this movie called The Banker. And it was about I think it was about two black bankers or two black people who kind of, and Anthony Mackie and I think Samuel L. Jackson is in it. And they, kind of took over like this real estate game at a time where black people were being like shunned out, but they found a way to do it. So think of Black Klansmen, but like for real estate almost. So it was definitely something. I want to see more movies like that. You know what I mean? I want to see more movies like that. I want to see more movies where like self-made, minus, the inaccuracies, but, about us being entrepreneurs and us, that's why I liked Hidden Figures. We got to see black women, being good at math and becoming engineers and being scientists. But then I want to know if it doesn't involve some type of struggle or if it's just, how receptive are we going to be to that? Not saying we're not going to be receptive at all, but I'm saying how receptive are we going to be to, especially when it comes to black movies about black relationships between black men and black women. It seems like we do tend, and for a while, we have tended to gravitate towards the one that showcased trauma and drama and pain and struggle and dysfunction between black men and black women in relationships. Now I'm starting to see people saying, okay, Tyler Perry, enough with the same old, but before you were all in it because it was so-called relatable. And I feel like that is another thing holding us back. I think there is a level of a catch-22 or a double-edged sword. You say one thing, but then you're doing the other thing. You say you don't want one thing, but then you're doing the thing you say you don't want. And this is not all of us. I know this is not all of us. Before people get upset, I am not saying we all do this because I'm noticing a shift nowadays. But I noticed that especially within Tyler Perry movies, I see a lot of criticism now going towards Tyler Perry with his depiction, especially of black women and black women in relationships. But if you think about it, Tyler Perry was also taking from his life. So the Medea character I heard was like a depiction or came from the characteristics of his aunt. And he said some of the women who've been in abusive relationships that he, wrote about, like in Diary of a Mad Black Woman, Medea's Family Reunion, that he said his mother was kind of a docile person or kind of a person who kind of, didn't fight back in a way and took a lot of abuse from his father, as he did from his father. So if anything, it's a case of art imitating life. And one of the reasons I think black women and black people were able to look at Tyler Perry movies for so long before we criticize, his writing and his shows now, Still love Tyler Perry though, is because if you think about it, he's just doing what he sees in his life. One, and two, he this stuff has been going on before Tyler Perry movies came out. Tyler Perry just, became, I think, the most famous for it, or one of the most famous for it. This has been going on before Tyler Perry. Now, granted, we'll say we don't want black pain and struggle movies and trauma movies, but we love movies like Baby Boy. Queen and Slim, I think, was just Baby Boy taken to the extreme. I mean, Baby Boy, we hail that as a cult classic, but I'm telling you, if you look deeply at it, Baby Boy was nothing more than about a broke Dusty who had two baby mamas, who was cheating on one on and off again relationship. Okay, he didn't have a car, he barely had a job, he was living at his mother's. I mean, he was basically, he was a Pookie and a Ray Ray. He was a broke Dusty. It was dysfunctional, and he was also abusive, and he's been to jail. Like all that stuff that stereotypically is placed on us, all of that stuff, but we'll call it relatable, because I guarantee you some people who watch that can look at an Yvette and say, yeah, I'm Yvette, or I have a baby daddy who's a Jody. You know what I'm saying? See what I mean? And what I find funny is, like I said, we get mad when movies like this get snubbed for the awards, but we also get mad when they win the awards or get nominated. Like the Harriet movie and like other movies, is like, oh, they only nominate us for slave movies, and they only give us awards for slave movies and slave roles and da 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 da. But we still went and we still watched, and some of you, especially the Gen X and baby boomer crowd, you still enjoyed. I'm a millennial / Gen Z. I'm a cusper, so I don't know where I fit in. But I also wanted to touch on this topic before I go. Kendall St. Charles, in a live stream with Crystal and Karazin, mentioned that we, especially Black women, we are suffering from what is called a peptide addiction. And I do believe a lot of us have this, where we unconsciously or subconsciously are addicted to the drama and the dysfunction, and anything outside of that we consider not normal or boring or uninterested. So she talks about how, when we're constantly stimulated, and she does a better job at kind of explaining this better than I can. But she said, when you're constantly stimulated with negative experiences and in a negative environment, where a lot of the times you see dysfunction and drama and trauma. Now, when you take the polar opposite and you go to the polar opposite, Queen and Slim, Baby Boy versus The Photograph, you may have problems adjusting. And, Crystal and Karazin from the Pink Pill, she talks about this, how it relates to Black women dating out. When Black women first start dating out, or when Black women leave toxic relationships and start dating out, or just even dates nice guys, or just dates, goes to a normal setting or a quiet neighborhood. She says that the relationships she says that the women she's counseled who say that their relationships with non-Black men are boring. And I see a lot of that happening with Black women maybe Black people in general, who just switch over from one dysfunctional area to a different, quieter, polar opposite. So even when we claim that we don't want the dysfunction and we're tired of seeing this, we're tired of seeing that, when we get the polar opposite of that, we call it boring. It's boring. It needs to be done better. It's not executed well, and sometimes they aren't. Let's just be honest. But it's like, let's just be honest. I feel like we are low-key, subconsciously or unconsciously addicted to the drama. And the polar opposite of that, especially when you can't relate to it, you look at that as taboo. You look at that as something that is just not a part of Black culture. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing with us in another area. We get mad at being negatively stereotyped, but when there's a Black person or a few Black people that don't adhere or debunk those negative stereotypes, they're not Black enough. It's that stuff too. So if you ask me, I feel like this is one of the reasons why we claim that we don't want these problematic movies, these Black pain struggle movies, but we still watch. You still watch, you still praise them, you still give them its ranking, unless it was done poorly. If it was executed poorly, then it's like, oh, enough of these slave movies. But I think the slave movies are just the tip of the iceberg. I think we've had a good 5-10 year run, maybe forever run with, black media and film depicting slavery or black people in slavery, no matter whether it was a Nat Turner one or a 12 Years a Slave one, doesn't matter. I think we've had a good few year run. Okay. But I also want to see more balancing out of especially Black history, but about Black people being leads, protagonists, and doing all types of stuff that just doesn't have to do with Black pain and trauma or Black dysfunction within relationships. And that's all I have to say. So tell me what you think. Tell me in the comments down below what you think, your opinions. Did you see Queen and Slim and The Photograph? Did you see one or the other? What was your opinion? I saw them both, and that's why I gave my, views on this. But anyway, please tell me what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.